Utah's Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force is busier than ever. The disturbing facts on this edition of Legally Speaking. Hello, I'm Richard Pyatt. Over the last year, ICAC's caseload has grown to an unprecedented level. That means more cases of child sexual abuse material, more children exploited, more children harmed by adult contact than ever before in this state. It's important for parents to know what's happening and what the trends are in our community, even if it's uncomfortable to hear. And the AG's ICAC commander, Sete Aulai, has the update for us. Thanks for joining us today, Sete.
Thanks for having me.
Can you outline what has changed or what's evolved, really, and what your ICAC officers and you are seeing on the job?
Well, the amount of work has definitely not slowed down. Rather, it's gone up with the number of cyber tips that we're receiving from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC. Those reports from various companies, Facebook's, Google's, YouTube, all these different social media platforms, they're getting a lot better at reporting. And with that comes with the large amount of reports that we're seeing being reported to NCMEC. The other thing that we're seeing an uptick in, and we've seen this trend this year, is the number of artificial intelligence, AI-related CSAM that's being tracked by NCMEC, that's being reported to NCMEC. So we've seen an increase in those numbers.
And CSAM is child abuse sexual material.
Child sex abuse material, yes, CSAM.
Okay. And so this sounds like it's not just happening in Utah, it's happening nationally. This issue is happening nationally.
Yes.
Do you have any idea why this is happening? Is it the change in population, perhaps, or advances and changes in technology, or do you have an idea there?
People's curiosity, I guess. Definitely changes in technology with the continued evolution of the internet. People are finding more ways to act on these nefarious behavior, and so there really isn't a definitive way to say why the increase of these types of cases, but we're definitely seeing the increase, and it just varies on the platform. It varies on the individual.
Do you think that as awareness has grown, that perhaps we're hearing about it, people are knowing to report it, and maybe the reports to NCMEC are increasing because awareness is also increased?
Yes, all the above. So awareness is definitely up there. Us here at the Attorney General's office, we have a dedicated education specialist who goes out to schools, to churches, communities, to educate on the harm that social media platforms has, how to be safe on the internet, and then of course these companies they are federally mandated to report when they find exploitation material on their platforms, and they're getting a lot better at doing that. And with more and more companies that are being created to be on social media, a lot of these companies are hiring more analysts to monitor what's going on their platforms, and they're getting better at reporting it to NCMEC.
So when it comes to the child sex abuse material, the CSAM, talk a little bit about what the harm is to the children that are portrayed in these things. I know that there's a lot of people that are like, oh well, they haven't been harmed. They're doing this. No one really got hurt. They're just appearing in this thing. Yeah, they may be doing something a little unconventional, but what's the harm? What is the harm?
Oh gosh, I mean, thank you for that question. I mean, that's probably one of the furthest things from the truth, is that no child has been harmed. These pictures, these videos, it's real. Those are real children on there being raped, being sodomized, sexually abused. And so that's part of our education here, is that and that's to the community, that's to law enforcement, that these pictures, they aren't just pictures. They really are of children being abused. Because if it is just a child that's standing there perhaps naked, well, we know that something happened either before or after that picture is taken or after that video is recorded. So it's that is the farthest thing from the truth, that these videos are just videos, that these pictures are just pictures. It's not.
The story goes beyond the video, and who knows what even participating in the video does to the child internally, even if the child may not really realize it at the time or immediately.
Yes.
When it comes to this material, though, would you also say that it's dangerous for the people who are viewing it in some ways, some insidious ways that perhaps they don't realize? Was it harmful to the people that are consuming it? Yeah,
it's definitely harmful to them, because they're becoming more desensitized to what they're viewing, and also they're adding to the demand for this type of material to be manufactured, to be produced.
Do you think, from your experience in dealing with suspects, that you could say that the exposure to the material sort of reprograms the mind of the people that are the suspects in your cases, and maybe kind of not only desensitizes them to it, but maybe, kind of changes or reprograms it? Is there any reversing that once that starts happening? Right.
No, and I would completely agree with that. Those who consume this type of material, their outlook on the population, their outlook on life, and when they see children, what are they thinking when they see a child, the age of what they're viewing, what's going through their mind? And so, yes, I would agree that it does change their mindset. Those who consume adult pornography and have a strong addiction to adult pornography, we've seen that they become desensitized to that type of pornography, and then they move on to something else that would satisfy their urges. Well, we've seen that ultimately leads to them consuming CSAM, viewing CSAM, and it's like what you see with a drug addict. They would start somewhere, and then it would progressively move to another drug,
and then they need more and more and more extreme images somehow.
Right, and they're gonna just look for something that's going to satisfy that urge. And I'm not saying that those who view adult pornography is going to get into viewing CSAM, but what we have seen is those who view CSAM, it started from viewing pornography. So,
right. Is there any way of unraveling that or undoing it and returning the person to a more normal state?
I don't know. I mean, that's hard to say. That's probably.
I know there's definite in law enforcement. There's definite feelings. There are officers who and attorneys, prosecutors who have worked with these cases who have definite feelings that once you're that way, that's it.
You're that way, yeah. And I would agree with that. That once you're into this stuff, you're viewing it on a daily basis or whatever. Yeah, it is hard to reverse that. And I get asked, how does someone reverse this? And I don't know the answer to that, but it is definitely hard for someone to.
Well, your job is to find them and arrest them, not necessarily to do the deprogramming and leave that to somebody else.
Yeah.
But for the people that are in that mindset, again, sitting and viewing it isn't just sort of innocuous either, because the potential is there for the person to want to up the ante, to increase the adrenaline high, and then potentially become a predator who might be reaching out to a live child. Isn't that sort of the point of cracking down on the CSAM?
Yeah, it is, because we know 80%, maybe even higher, but 80% of those who consume these things, it's not just going to stop at viewing it. They're going to act on those urges, and who knows when that is, who knows where it's going to happen, but we know that those who view this stuff, who consume it, they're going to act on those.
So our office also prosecutes these cases. Do you get the feeling for whether from the time that you arrest someone to the time that the charges are filed and those persons are prosecuted, that a conviction helps reduce that particular risk to children?
No. I mean, just this week, my agents arrested a repeat offender, and so I wouldn't say that it decreases their chances, or that it eliminates them from viewing this stuff. Rather, they're gonna just look for another way to get away with this crime.
So we've got a statewide task force.
Yes.
We tap into law enforcement from corner to corner of the state of Utah. Are we? Would you say that, in the face of this increasing threat, we're also better equipped than ever to at least deal with it or take a chunk out of it?
Yeah. And I wouldn't say we're ahead of it. Law enforcement's never going to be ahead of it, but we're definitely right behind it. Like you said, we are. For Utah's ICAC, we are in every corner of the state. There is an ICAC affiliate, investigators everywhere. And yes, we are aggressive. We are persistent in finding those who download, who view CSAM, and we definitely go after them. And
sometimes you get someone, very often you get someone who actually has had contact with children. They go hand in hand, right?
Very often, unfortunately.
So let me kind of turn this around and ask your advice as a parent and as someone who is in the community and has friends that have children. What kinds of things do you recommend to parents that will maybe perhaps prevent them from being exposed? Protect them from some of these forces? What do you usually say to parents that are scared for their children's well-being?
Yeah, there's a couple ways with that. I'm always asked, hey, what kind of blockers can I put? What kind of safety measures can I put on my child's phone? And that's great. And there's a lot of privacy settings that you can put on your child's phone, and locking mechanisms that you can do for your child's phone. But parents have to understand, the moment you allow your child to have a smartphone, you have to understand the consequences that's going to come with that. And I'm not trying to scare or anything like that. It's just being real, that there's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of potential consequences that come with handing a child a smartphone because of the strong capabilities that those things have. Probably the biggest thing that I encourage parents is to build a trusting relationship with their child. Trusting enough where if something were to happen, that their child has a trusting adult, which would you would hope that it's mom and dad, that they could go to them like, hey mom, hey dad, hey mom, gosh, I did something really stupid. And you would hope that they would feel comfortable enough to disclose what they've done, what they sent, what they did, comfortable enough to talk to their parents about that. And so that's what I would suggest, because you can have all the safety measures in the world, but you also have to remember that those safety measures, they're going to become outdated. We always do updates on our phones all the time. And why is that? Because there's some sort of bug that's happening, right? But in my honest opinion, if a parent has a trusting relationship with their child, I think that's more important, and that is a much better safety mechanism than the privacy settings that we can put on our phones.
Right. Yeah, because the threat can lurk on familiar social media sites in places that seem innocuous, but that have dark corners kind of hidden within them too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for sharing some time with us about what you do here at ICAC and how the issue is kind of evolving and growing and how we're adapting.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, you bet. And thank you for joining us today on Legally Speaking. We'll talk to you next time.